How am I to think as a Christian? If I name the name of Christ, and if you name the name of Christ, how should we be thinking about ourselves, about others? And Paul gives us 4 examples in Philippians chapter 2 of right kind of thinking, which always leads to the right way of acting. But first of all, let us see how Christ thinks. And listen to what Paul says. In your relationships with one another, and it's an imperative, be thinking this way as Christ thought. Have the same mindset as Christ had. Well, how did Christ think? Listen to what he says. Who being in very nature God, there he is, deity, did not consider equality with God something to be used to his own advantage. It's not something he had to grasp, hold on to. Rather, he made himself nothing. The translation is, he really made himself empty. He emptied himself by taking the very nature of a servant, a bondslave literally, being made in human likeness, and being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to death, even death on a cross. This is the most magnificent display of the inward thinking of Jesus Christ, even before he went to the cross, even before Bethlehem. He was thinking this way before he ever submitted to the humility of the incarnation, before the humility of the crucifixion. This is how he thought about himself before the event ever happened. You see, unless our thinking gets changed, we will never become acting like a slave, acting like a servant, acting like we love you. We don't want to be put on charades. I want to act like I love you, but I really don't. No, we act of how we think. And here Christ, who being in the nature of God, one of the greatest passages on the deity of Christ, he was in the nature of God because he is God, along with the Father and the Spirit. He shares the nature of God. But what did he do? He didn't cling to all of his prerogatives. He said, I'll lay aside my external glory. I can never cease to be God, but I can give up the throne. I can give up the outward splendor of my person, and I'll come. I'll be born to a humble couple in Palestine. So poor were his parents that for purification they brought a poor man's offering, 2 turtle doves. They couldn't afford a lamb. They were poor parents, poor village. But he said, I gave this up. I emptied myself. I poured myself out. And it's this way. When Christ lived and died, and by the time he died on the cross, as it were, when he went back to heaven, it would be like this bottle would be empty. He poured himself out. There was nothing left for him to do. He could give no more than he gave. He gave it everything he had to give. So he died emptied, poor, in a borrowed tomb, a criminal's death, the death of a criminal, a shame. And was he killed inside Jerusalem? No. You don't crucify garbage in the city. He was treated like a piece of garbage. He died at the city garbage dumps. That's where our God wound up. That's where we killed him. And he wound up in a tomb. But for God the Father, he'd still be there rotting, and the worms would have destroyed him. But his Father would not allow it. This is the mind of Christ. How can we ever boast and want to be greater than him? He is the model, not an egomaniac, not a vain politician or a self-centered person. Christ is the way to think. How are you thinking? Is it at all like Christ? That's the issue God is asking us. Do you think like my son?